Hey, I'm Kristen.
And I'm Mike.
And this is
The Business Family.
You're listening to episode 2 of The Business Family. On today's episode, we talk with our good friends Eric and Sabriah Floberg. Eric is one of Chicago's top wedding filmmakers and photographers. He also provides education for aspiring photographers through his YouTube channel with videos like how to make $100K as a wedding photographer and how to photograph interiors with your phone. Sabriah is the primary caregiver in their family and also started her side hustle interior design company Nestled Home in the past year. In this episode, we dive into how to take your side hustle from just a passion to a full-time business in the midst of having young kids, the importance of maintaining and focusing on mental health and your family, and what it means to truly take a break from it all as a business owner. So let's dive right in. Hey guys, we are so excited to be here with Eric and Sabriah. They're some of our closest friends and they are jumping right in with us on The Business Family, which is super exciting. Just a short little background about them before we jump in, and I'll let them tell the details of it all. But Eric is an amazing filmmaker and photographer for his namesake, Eric Floberg. You can find him at Eric Floberg on Instagram.
At Eric.Floberg.
Yep.
Oh, at Eric.Floberg, sorry. And then Sabriah started Nestled Home on Instagram.
We're both dots.
Classic.
I love it. And yeah, she's an interior designer. So we are just going to hop right in and get started.
Eric
ready,
was
guys?
also a part of Creative Club Chicago as well.
Oh yeah, he's a part of that too.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure it'll all kind of come together.
Yeah.
Awesome. So just to kind of start off, I would love to hear what you guys started, how you guys got started with, obviously Eric, your stuff, and Sabriah, Nestled Home. So just kind of walk us through the timeline, like all the way back. Take us to like dating, engagement, where things were at with all
Way
that.
back.
Whoa, way back.
Well, you think I'm going to talk too much, so I'm going to go ahead and let you.
No, you can take it away.
What?
I'll chime in.
You
I'm
want me
good.
to talk?
I'll chime in.
Okay. So, this is my lovely wife, Sabriah.
My lovely wife.
Lovely wife, Sabriah. This is my lovely wife, Sabriah. We have been together for 9 years now.
What? Wow.
9 years now. Yep.
Mhm.
We've been married for almost 6.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, we met in 2010 via Facebook, and her brother kind of.
Mhm.
It's kind of weird. He like showed me her Facebook profile, and I was like, just got out of a 3-year dating relationship with a girl from high school and was like, nah, I don't want girls in my life. So I was like, no, Deka. And then I heard that she was coming to the college I went to, Illinois State University, and creeped her. Oh, sorry. I'm not supposed to touch the microphone.
It's like immediate.
I creeped on her.
He's moving it back and forth.
I creeped on her on Facebook, and I was like, wow, this girl's really pretty. I'm going to DM her. I don't think we called it DMs back then. It was like, I'm going to instant
message.
I'm going
Facebook message.
to inbox
you.
So I messaged her. I was like, hey, I heard you were coming to ISU. You better, like some stupid thing. And she like, totally ghosted me. I'm like, okay, cool. That was dumb. And later on, she responded. It was because she was dating some other dude, and she felt weird about responding to me because
he was cute.
Well, her
And my
brother,
brother also.
had done like a matchmaker dating thing with her, and I was one of the contestants.
Yeah, he was my top pick. He
I was
gave me
number
like
one
3
out of
guys.
3?
Yeah,
That is so
So
funny.
she
knew
Was
who
this
I
on
was
Facebook?
already.
What was this on?
it was Facebook. I mean, they
Like
were
one of those
just like
tests or whatever?
no. My brother literally.
He set it up. He was like, here are
Facilitated
3
this.
bachelors.
Oh my gosh.
He's
Love
like,
it.
Eric Floberg plays guitar. He's on the worship team at Crew.
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
like, yeah. Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, so I got number 1 in her book. So when she got that message, she was like, oh my gosh, I can't respond to him. I'm dating somebody else. This is crazy. So she kind of ghosted me and then randomly messaged me again and made me all nervous because I wasn't expecting that months later or a month later or whatever. And we started just chatting it up. And then we went on a snowboarding trip together where the whole last 2 hours of the car ride, everyone fell asleep and then we were in the back seat. It was like a total movie moment. So I proposed a year and a half later.
Mhm.
We were engaged for 11 months. I did a big, grandiose proposal, which you've seen.
Yep.
Mhm.
Link in the show notes.
Nice.
I was going to say everything.
I did a whole like
Everything's in the
tangled
show notes,
theme,
guys.
tangled theme,
Yeah, it was very cool.
lanterns up in the air. It was fun. It was really fun.
I remember in college, like seeing that video.
Yeah.
And
being-
wishing I was Eric.
Well, kind of. I don't know.
I'm not big grandiose
not that
type
way.
of guy. Yeah,
But I
no.
was just like,
I proposed in an alley.
whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It was very cool.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah.
It was
That's
a bit
awesome.
much,
It
but
was very
But so fun
I think
and
it was
such a good
very
memory.
us at
Really
the
fun.
time.
Yeah,
Oh my
I just
gosh,
watched
yeah.
it with somebody, the video the other day, because I hadn't seen it. And I don't know if I've watched it in,
Oh, she
Uh,
can't wait for
yeah, it's Bombay Bicycle Club. I use the
Mhm.
song. I wasn't licensed, so I can't monetize that video at all. It sucks.
God, you're the worst.
can exploit
You're
our
the worst.
engagement.
So tell me a little bit about, obviously, like you guys now have some kids and stuff like that, which
Yeah,
we can talk about in
few
a
of them.
second. But I would love to hear, like, business wise, what was going on in that period? Like, did you have things started, Eric? Did you have things started, Sabriah?
I'm
what
not
was
her
going
to
on?
talk about this stuff.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So when we got engaged, actually, I would have been going into my senior year of college, but I'm a college dropout and I'm proud of it. And Eric was finishing his senior year, and you had done a wedding at that point,
Yeah.
right? I don't know
Yeah.
how many.
July of 2011 was the first wedding I shot. So that was 2 years before I graduated.
Mhm.
So I've been shooting a handful of weddings in college.
So I remember our original plan was like, okay, we're going to get married. Eric will teach for 2 years because he has to with the scholarship. Probably he'll teach for 6 or 7 more.
Or 10.
And it might take 10 years to start this photography, videography business.
But it was always in the plan.
It was because he'd fallen in love. You'd fallen in love with it.
Yeah, it was a pipe dream for sure. I was like, maybe it'll pan out, but at least I have teaching.
Literally, it was like a 10-year goal.
Wow.
Yeah, that was what I fully expected.
Mm-hmm. And so we decided to move to Chicago and do the Chicago thing for a couple of years before we wanted to start a family. But then 6 months after we were married, we got pregnant.
Whoops.
And we're like, well, we don't want to move from Chicago because we just got here. And Eric had quickly gotten really busy.
Mhm.
And by the time Scout was born, which was in 2014, he basically had 2 full-time jobs. And it was really difficult. I remember it being a tough season because we were like navigating having a third person in our family, and then Eric working at every hour of the day because we were getting up at that time at like 5 a.m.
Because we only had one car.
Yeah, I would drop him off at the train station. He would
train.
commute for like an hour.
I literally brought my bike onto the train. So she would drive me at 5 a.m. I'd put my bike in our hatchback. She'd drive me to the train. I'd load my bike on the train, 45-minute train ride, and then 1.5-mile bike ride to my school. And then teach the whole school day. The next train didn't come until an hour after the school day ended. So I had to wait at school for an hour.
Or sometimes you would coach.
Sometimes I coach basketball too.
Mhm.
Wow.
Or track.
And I would get on my bike, go back to the train station, and she wouldn't pick me up. So it would be 1.5 miles back to the
I
station.
just wouldn't.
40
I was like, no.
She wouldn't pick me up.
45-minute ride back in, and then another 1.5 mile 3-mile bike home. So 6 miles of biking every day, and an hour and a half of train ride,
Wow.
and an hour and a half of waiting at school. It was ridiculous.
And then he'd get home
And then I'd have to edit.
and edit. And I was teaching at the time, so that's why I didn't
She was
pick you
teaching
up.
dance.
I
Yeah.
was teaching dance, which was after school hours. So like our schedules for the first year of marriage were completely flipped,
Yeah.
where I would be gone 3 or 4 nights a week and he would be gone during the day. And so like we only had 1 or 2 nights together.
It's
And
crazy.
that was also hard.
It was also when the Bulls were really good, and I was obsessed with watching them, and I'd procrastinate on editing and just scream at the
And
TV.
you were watching Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad, and I would stay
So
up till
many distractions.
I would just like stay up till 2 a.m. editing things and go to school dead tired.
Yeah.
And it was miserable until we got our second car,
Mm-hmm.
and then I was
we
finally able to
did
start
fairly
commuting
soon.
on my own and have some more power of my time over
You
my
could come and
time.
go. Mhm.
As traffic was still terrible, but I was still cutting out like an hour and a half of the commute. So that was really nice to have another vehicle to do that.
Mhm.
But it's
And
chaos. I taught for 3 years. After the second year, we really contemplated me switching to full time with my business, because the first year I taught, I think I shot 13 weddings that year and taught full time and coached,
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
which was
Mhm.
insane. And then the next year was
Mhm.
more insane. It
Mhm.
was like 18 weddings and doing the same,
Mhm.
coaching and teaching and
With a kid.
with a kid.
Mhm.
But So I fulfilled my scholarship after the 2 years. I needed to teach 2 years in the first 5 that I was out of college in Illinois. So I did that, but we had Scout and I was like, I don't want to sacrifice the benefits, health insurance. And so I'm like, just going to do 1 more year. It'll just be a good year for income. Like we'll have a healthy
money.
bank account.
Mm-hmm.
And it ended up being like the worst year of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I shot 25 weddings that year and I taught full time and coached and did all of it. And it was so difficult because I was really trying to authentically grow my business and really care for my clients. But I was giving like 50% on both sides of the candle, you know, like I was only giving 50% to my students, which was not fair to them. I was giving 15% of my clients. And then I'm like, as much as I totally regret doing this, but it was a necessity. Like I had to do business stuff at school if I wanted any time with my family. So I started sacrificing at my job and it being kind of sketchy, but then I would do creative things and make the principal happy. And like, I don't know. It was just this really...
Eric's 50% though is still like 110%.
Yeah, sure.
Let's be honest.
Yeah. So I was making videos for my kids and like rap videos and stuff.
It's true.
And
he's a last minute, like...
I throw things together so last minute. For teaching, I would literally plan my lessons like hours before class and I would wing them all the time. And they ended up being awesome and fine. Because that was just, I don't know, it's just my style of teaching. I'm very laid back, especially with education that I do now with my business, super laid back with that stuff. And I think there's a lot of value with having room to change it last minute. It's obviously not preferred for so many people. People want to be organized and prepared and ready. I just feel really confident in my ability to teach because I have the background in it. I have an education in it, a lot of experience in it. So I just always approach it with a confident attitude, especially with middle schoolers, like 12 years old. And you're like, it's not hard to impress you. I just have to like do a
just
dance
brought your
move.
guitar sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know. You relate to them on a human level and what they like, getting to their level, and they really appreciate you. And then we'll start listening to you. But I taught special ed, so it was really challenging at times. Kids with behavior disorders, and all sorts of nuance. Whereas like it was not a typical classroom, and I'm like having to kick kids out and break up fights and all sorts of stuff. So that was in the middle of the chaos of growing the business as well. But June of 2016, I jumped to my business full time, and it was like one of the most freeing. It was better than graduating college. It was better than graduating high school, better than graduating college. It was like, holy crap, I'm free, and I can go 100% at what I really, really want to do. And that was really very exciting.
Yeah, but it's funny because I remember that day or week, but I actually almost mostly remember that year being really hard. Because then Eric set up a desk in our bedroom and started working from home.
And at that point, you guys were pregnant with Theo, or almost pregnant.
I don't think we were yet.
It was close. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we were, definitely talking about it. And Eric got really depressed because he was like, I haven't stepped foot outside in 48 hours. And
totally.
I haven't showered because he's working in our bedroom. 2 full
days inside.
Yeah. And especially in the winter.
It was awful.
And then like Scout's having a meltdown and I'm in the next room and I'm like, why isn't Eric helping me? Because he can definitely hear him. I know he can. And so there was a lot of hard conversations of like, I'm still at work. I'm not here.
But if he falls off of a table and starts bleeding, I'm not just going to sit in the bedroom and be like, I'm at work. Sorry.
Let's go with it.
So there were times where he would clearly fall or hurt himself or like much crazier scream than the normal just tantrum. And so then I would feel the obligation to come out and make sure everything's okay. Whereas if I was in a different place for work, she would still be able to handle that situation, but I still feel the obligation being there to break my work day to go help that scenario.
Yeah. It was tough because I think eventually I knew that with my brain, like Eric, I should not have any expectations of Eric right now. He's working, he's clocked in, and it's like he's not here. But it was like a constant battle that I was fighting in my head of like reminding myself that, and it was exhausting. And it was like resentment was still growing. And I hated that because I didn't want it to. I knew, I shouldn't be feeling this way towards you. And then Eric assumed that I felt that way towards him. And then it was like, he treated me that, a different way because he's like, well, I know you're mad at me. I'm like, I'm not mad at you, but like I kind of was a little bit.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to be. I didn't
stuff.
want to be mad because I know I shouldn't be. So then you started Creative Club.
Yeah.
And that was very good. for our
Yeah, so
marriage.
it boiled up to a point where I'm like, something definitely needs to change. I can't keep working from home. I need to find a studio. I need to find a place to work. I was making enough money at that point. I was like, okay, I have enough expendable income to do this new thing. And so I started talking to somebody I knew in the industry. His name's Aaron Bean. I think you guys know him.
Yeah, he just lives with us.
Okay.
Not a big deal.
He's our
works for
our
us.
Manny. So just kidding. He
Sir.
doesn't watch our child.
Yeah, don't let him watch your child.
No.
Literally
I literally
never
don't think
has.
he has
No.
once, but with
ground rules.
someone else there.
That's
He
Aw.
watched Scout one time too. Yeah,
He did.
once.
He did. He told me about it.
Yeah. So I
sure
talked to
he
him.
did.
I'm like, hey, I'm at this place now. You know, I really want to get a studio, somewhere else to work other than my bedroom. And it was just an idea. It was like, I just want to maybe do this. And so he took that as, I'm definitely doing this. And I want you to be my advocate for making it happen. I think that's how he interpreted it, because he immediately went to a Facebook group for Chicago shooters and was like, hey, Eric and I are getting a studio together. And I was like, when did I ever say that? And a couple comments on it, like, oh, that's cool, a good idea. And then Gene Yoon, our other friend, commented on that post and said, I'm really interested in that too. That sounds great.
Did you know Gene before that?
I did. I stood in a wedding with him. We have a
That's
mutual
right.
friend.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
He
right.
also, I think, had come over. Like Eric would have
Oh, I met with him at Heritage once.
co-working days. Like Gene sat at our
Yeah.
dining room table and a couple other guys.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a few days at home.
He brought donuts, so he won my heart.
Yeah. But I also went to a coffee shop with him.
You're
We got to
in.
know each
Yep.
other
I like you.
more. Yeah. So Bean then had a lead on a studio. I was like, yeah, I have a friend in a building, commercial building, and there's a vacant unit and we should go see it. And I'm like, all right, fine. I guess we'll go check it out. So I had the kids that day. I made a vlog about this day. It's like deep in my YouTube channel. And
Link in bio
link in bio.
or link in description.
Link in show notes,
And,
babe. Come on, get it right.
And
Shout outs.
we went and we saw it, and the landlord opened the door and we saw the space and we knew the price, and we're like, we don't need to see anything else. This is perfect. It was like 900 square feet, 14-foot ceilings, big white box, perfect for photographers, $1,000 a month. Am I allowed to say how much it is?
I don't care.
Okay.
We're really transparent here.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. Crazy good price for a really cool location in Chicago. We're like, we didn't want to be those people that like look at the landlord and are like, yep, we love everything about it. We were like, oh yeah, it's pretty cool. You know?
It's okay.
But secretly being
We'll
like,
think
oh
about
my
it.
gosh.
It just had beautiful light, right? That's the main thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's all you need. So we're sold on it immediately. And I don't remember how long after I had told
You had asked me, I think even before you saw the space.
Oh, okay. If you're
Yeah.
interested in going
You
in on
wanted
something
Mike
like
in
this.
on it.
Yeah,
'Cause
like,
it was
you're
like-
like, hey, I'm going in this thing with Bean. I was like, F that. I'm not going in anything with Bean. Bean's crazy.
And you were
Bean's
literally
crazy.
saying that because you're
I
like,
will never
Mike,
work with him.
Yeah, I
Move
was
to
like, you need to make
Chicago.
ground rules. Like, this kid is going to just like talk your ear off all day.
Yeah.
But then, like,
I
we love you,
remember
Bean,
that.
If you're listening.
That's crazy.
I remember
That was 2.5 years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
And I was trying to convince you to move up to Chicago because you were in
And he said no.
Central Illinois.
but
still.
then Kristen caught word of it. It was like, no, this is like, I
Yeah.
think what's best for our family. You can't pass up on this.
Yeah. If you want to hear more about that, we have our Chicago Story podcast coming up
Mhm.
Mhm.
in
talk
a
all
couple
about it.
weeks, and we talk all about it. But yeah, essentially,
But then we
we
moved
won't
to
give
Chicago.
away the punchline.
were in.
But we live in Chicago, so I guess it's already
Yeah.
cat's out the bag.
Even as professional photographers and videographers, we found ourselves using our cell phones to capture a lot of our on-the-go content for both our family and our business. That's why we purchased Moment lenses. Moment makes a variety of lenses and photography gear for your mobile device that can elevate your cell phone camera to a more professional quality. If you're interested in learning how Moment lenses can up your cell phone game, check out thebusinessfam.com/moment and get 10% off any of your purchase.
Everything that we talked about up to this point, I was teaching dance.
Okay.
And when we got married, I was planning to be a professional dancer. I was for a year before we got married. And then that dream kind of changed pretty quickly, but I loved teaching and pretty much saw myself doing that for the rest of my life. But as we got pregnant with our second And I think every year I was like cutting back 1 day a week. So by the time I had Theo, I think I was doing 1 or 2 days. It was probably 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 1. And then, I don't know. I had been doing it for 10 years, which is crazy to say because I'm not that old, but I started teaching like as an assistant when I was 11 or 12. And then I started my own classes when I was 16. So I was like, I've been doing this for a long time. Like maybe that's why it doesn't feel super exciting.
She's a very good dancer.
Well,
very good.
And I
She won't
also
say that about her.
I also wasn't able to commit very much time to my own training. So I think it started to fizzle. Like I didn't necessarily feel like I was bringing anything fresh either because it was like same old, like I was doing what I knew I was good at doing. But it didn't feel fresh for me. And so we had just moved here and I remember taking a shower and just being like, what if I didn't teach next year? And we were kind of wrapping up the year. It was probably spring because we had just moved here. Yeah. And it was a weird thought to have. I didn't even really want to have it because it was kind of really wrapped up in who I was, like my identity. I'm a dancer and I'm a dance teacher.
And when you say move here, you don't mean Chicago. You mean like literally into this
place.
condo.
Yeah. Because it was April when we moved in. And then, it was a scary thought, a weird thought. And then I was like, what else would I do to replace it? But actually, we had just moved into this home that needed to be renovated and I was really enjoying it. And I had sort of offered to friends, like, let me help you with this. Eric was like, you should make this a business. And I was like, no.
Like interior design.
Interior design, yeah.
Okay,
helping
cool.
them decorate a space in their house or like
Sure.
a business or whatever. A casual roots family chiropractic. Just a business. No, I helped a little bit. They did a lot of it. But yeah, it was so fun for me. And Eric was just like, you should totally do this. You should make money off it. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just giving my opinion. And it's too fun to be a job. Like I'm totally fine not making money doing this because I love it. So that was always like kind of in the back burner. At least it had been for the last year. And as I started to think about like, well, I miss teaching. What will my life look like when I'm not having to leave every day at 3:00, having to find sitters every other, day. I mean, we had regular sitters, but it was getting to a point where it was really stressful. If one of them was sick, like it put a lot of stress on us because I had to be at dance. I had to teach my classes. Eric either had to drop what he was doing or we had to call in family again. And it was just like, I felt like I was always finding a babysitter. That was such a part-time job. And the idea of like being able to work from home or at a coffee shop. And if a sitter canceled, no big deal. I can work later, like having flexible hours was amazing. Theo,
That was our dishwasher.
it's going to do it again.
It'll do it a few times.
Theo was 1 at the time and it felt really right. I felt ready for it. And I still teach a little bit, but oddly enough, I don't miss it as much as I thought I would. I still love it. And it is still so much a part of who I am. But one time someone was like, dance or interior design if you had to choose one. I was like, that's a crazy question. Honestly, probably dance. But right now, interior design. Because it just fits.
What's so profound about what you just said is that I hear from so many entrepreneurs that start their own businesses, that start seeing success in their own businesses that they start up out of passion, is that they have that feeling of, I can't do this because this is just fun. I don't feel like I deserve money
guilty.
doing it because it's so fun.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful, awesome thing. That's exactly how I felt when I started doing what I did. And as it continued to grow, I kept getting that feeling until finally I came to grips with, oh no, like people really value my work. And that's what I feel like I'm constantly preaching that to Sabriah. She's crazy talented for just starting in interior design. She's very quickly realized like the ins and outs and nuances of what it takes to be an interior designer. She has great connections already. Her sister is a contractor and does work and has tons of connections in the contracting world. So she can make all those ideas come to life very easily for her clients. And I'm just kind of in the process of like, I want to see her take it to the next level.
Mhm.
And she's just kind of in a place where she's like, we're having our third child.
Woo.
Bum. I'm going to post it on Instagram tomorrow. So whatever.
They all just found out.
Oh, whoa. Instagram just found out.
Zoops.
Oopsies.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe I shouldn't post this. I
You
don't know.
should have told your mom first. I'm just kidding.
I was like, what? Wow.
She's gonna be
For a split
pissed.
second, I was like, wait, we didn't tell her mom?
Shoot.
Yeah, so we're kind of in this place where I really want her to grow it, honestly. And I'm kind of at the place where I go, do you want me to help grow it more? Or do we hire someone or do something? Because she's gotten a few clients already. I don't mean to speak on your behalf, but she's already gotten some clients that are like very, very good clients. And someone recently who just has like a huge following online, and we'll get her a ton of marketing for the work that she's doing on her kitchen. And so it's really exciting. And I don't know, like, I guess I haven't asked you a lot about how
Let's deep
you're
dive.
feeling about that
Mhm.
and
Well, yeah.
what
so
you
I
feel like
can
the next
take you
steps will
through.
be. Like, do you want to take it to the next level? Would you ever want to take it to the next level? Or do you want to wait till the kids grow up before you do something like that?
Yeah. So I started in October. So it's been 9 months. And I've had two handfuls of clients, but paying like well-paying clients.
Without any marketing.
Yeah. Jobs that,
Good jobs.
good jobs like that I was really proud of at the end
Mhm.
of, that I felt like reflected my style,
Yeah.
but also made them really happy. I had Eric photograph them. So it's been really amazing to have a built-in photographer. Actually pretty key because that is my marketing, is the
For sure.
photos.
And it blew my mind because she posts a few photos of our kitchen to Instagram. She tags the right things
Sure.
and hashtags the right things. She has a post hit like over 5,000 likes.
And he was really jealous. He was watching the whole day. Like, I just don't understand. How is this happening? And he's like, it's blowing up. I'm like, well, it's your photo. You can feel good about that.
Yeah.
He was like, but nobody's liked my photos that much on my
He should
account.
post that same photo, see what it
It
does.
doesn't.
It doesn't. I've done it.
That's amazing.
I don't tag it the same way.
Dang,
You should
Sabriah.
tag it that same way.
Well,
see
that's
what
what's
it
so
does.
interesting
That's
is
so
that
If you
it's strategy.
did, you would.
It's
Yeah,
totally
you would.
strategy. All kidding aside, I didn't know Instagram could do that. And there is a cult following of interior people on Instagram.
Who
That's awesome.
I have obsessions
Yes.
over, and I've learned a lot from.
And they have reposted her stuff, like her
Yeah, which
idols
is-
in the interior world who have reposted her
That's amazing.
photos,
So fun.
my photos, on their
Work, your photos.
But like, not to like,
yeah, on their stories.
Really
And it's
well
really
done.
exciting and cool
Yeah.
with like tons of people flooding in and wanting to follow her work because of that.
so
Yeah.
fun.
Instagram is a very powerful tool in the business making world, and especially in the interior stuff. So I look at it, I go, look at
There's so much
look at the
potential.
potential
Yeah.
that you have. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And
I almost have more followers than him. It's like, no big deal. That's not true at all. But I feel like it's so, okay, again, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like such a fake, right? Like
You
that's what I
sure do.
feel like. And
The
so
proof is
again,
in the
he is
pudding.
kind of like affirming,
the proof is in the pudding.
yeah, you know what you're doing.
If you wanted to take it to the next level, you totally could.
Mhm.
What I do respect about you, and very similarly to what you did when you denied me the first time we dated, is that you have a clear perspective of what you want. And having what's going to be 3 kids now,
Yeah.
you said, I
I
don't,
think it can wait.
right. Like,
Mhm.
I don't want to be taken away from them
Mhm.
as much as it could be
Right.
if I decide to pursue this really hard.
Mhm.
And so maybe that takes us sitting down and reevaluating if we do want it to grow, maybe just taking a different business model. Maybe that means hiring someone. Maybe that means re-strategizing how we want to produce that content
Mhm.
and go after it harder. And maybe it's the same amount of work for you, but less stress
Mhm.
with a different plan.
And childcare.
This is great. This is good therapy for us right now. Thank
We're
you.
really just in.
I love it.
We're in it for.
I was like, you guys are like running this podcast. I love it.
Marital
You're like
counseling.
asking the questions I was about to ask.
It's a secret
Perfect.
marital counseling.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Built in.
Built in.
But that's funny.
What
What
not to do.
podcasting is like,
We've been through
if
it.
you really get into it good, it's basically therapy.
Oh my gosh, Mike and I, we were talking for one of our other episodes, and we literally just started having. It was like, well, what do you? We've never talked about this,
Mhm.
and
It was about like childcare and how
Yeah.
much like nanny we want.
funny.
And
Yeah. And we're like,
It's
well,
like-
we've never actually sat down and hashed it out. And now we
Yeah.
kind of
Sure.
have to in
Right.
this platform. Is really
There's
interesting.
no phones
Yeah.
to pick up. Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Super interesting.
You're locked
So
in.
it sounds
mean-
like, I mean, historically, I know you guys, so I can kind of say, but historically, you guys have had some nannying.
Mhm.
Sabria's been staying at home.
Mhm.
You've kind of been the one bringing in the money
Yeah.
Yeah.
at this point.
Mhm.
And so, like, that whole dynamic, it sounds like will probably stay the same through this next child. And even with, you know, doing Nestled Home and stuff like that. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So
And have you guys actually ever like explicitly said like, oh, Sabriah stays at home and Eric goes to work, and Sabriah, you know, even with Nestled Home coming up, like, oh, Sabriah, you're kind of gonna take a step back in a way, or
Mhm.
is this kind of like, oh, it just happened, you
Yeah.
know, based
So
on
I will
desires or
say
whatever?
It was never an expectation that Eric had on me that I would stay home. If anything, he was always more like, you don't have to stay home with the kids if you don't want to, Sabriah. You should pursue this. And I was
I would
like,
always
wait a minute.
Push her to want to. Yeah,
Yeah.
I want her to be her own entrepreneur, but
Mhm.
that's just not how her personality is.
right,
Sure.
that's
And
you.
that's
It's not,
not-
built like
yeah.
I am. And so I was kind of just projecting myself on her.
Right. He's like,
I
you
was like-
should do this. You
and
should
I
do
didn't
this.
want to, I didn't want to like make her feel like she was being boxed into this like stereotypical housewife. I got to stay home, can't pursue
Sure.
the thing. And so
But it
I wanted to
actually,
be sensitive to that too.
but in a weird way, it made me kind of feel like a failure
Mm.
as a mom, because I was
Mm.
like, oh, so it was what I'm doing not enough. So we've come a long way from that in like 2 years, actually, because when Theo was born, our life did really shift from being able to drop off one kid easily to any family member,
Mhm.
last minute stuff, to then having 2 kids. It just became more
Nobody
of a big
wants to
deal.
watch.
Yeah, it's just harder logistically. And we had
Three's
a
gonna be a
toddler at that
doozy.
time too. So it was like a toddler and a newborn. That's tough. As I'm sure you guys know, like it just changes. 1 kid to 2 rocked our world in that way of like, oh, we're actually a family now. Like we actually are parents, and we're saying no to a lot more stuff than we ever have before. Yeah, sure, there's potential here, but then like, who am I? What choices am I making? Like, this has been my dream my whole life. And I think it's hard too. And I think a lot of moms that are stay-at-home moms can relate. You love it. And I think there are a lot of difficult times, and those difficult times you probably vocalize more than the fun times. And so Eric was hearing a lot of the struggle and the complaints. So he always felt like I was unsatisfied, and he always felt like, you're not happy. Even though I was being fulfilled in the way I'd always dreamt of being, although it's harder than I thought it ever would be. And yeah, so I think that was also part of, he thought he was helping me out. Like, oh, you don't have to stay home if you don't want to. So especially bringing another kid into this, I think I'm coming to the realization of like, I'm just going to go all in to like this momhood thing, because childcare gets more expensive with each kid. We're sending another kid to preschool. So that's financially, it's like we are going to start seeing that we're spending more money. And then 3 kids versus 2 kids versus 1 kid for a babysitter is different. Like the hourly rate is different. This year I realized I'm definitely paying for a sitter more than what I'm making. And we really took a bigger jump. Like I think I had a babysitter for close to 20 hours a week. Definitely wasn't working that much. And part of it was like me time, grocery shopping. That was great. But then at the end of it, I was like, I don't need this much. I definitely don't need this much for Nestled Home with where I'm at right now.
Mhm.
And I think if I can get the right perspective and like change my attitude on like parenting and be a little bit more like here and ready to face these challenges, then I can do it with less babysitting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at.
Eric, I would love to hear, I mean, we heard a lot about Sabriah, kind of like your thought process of shifting, you know, what you want, figuring out what you want. I would love to hear like where you have been in the past with all of this with kids. Like, did kids affect how you run your business? You know, when you first started it, when you were deciding to go full time, like we heard a little bit about it, obviously, with wanting health benefits still and whatever when Scout was born. So can you give us a little bit of your process in that too?
I went to college to become a teacher, taught full time, grew my business, and we had a kid right in the middle of it, and then had a second kid right when I decided to jump full time.
Mm-hmm.
So kids have always been in the equation for me, really growing my business. So it's just been a process of figuring out how to navigate all that, because there's a lot of guilt that's involved with growing something business wise and having enough time for your family, especially for your kids. I know plenty of people grow up with a dad that is present in their lives, but not like actually emotionally present, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always kind of sat in the back of my brain, that I never want to be that kind of dad that is physically present at times, but never emotionally invested. Like I don't always want to be the zombie dad in the morning who's just trying to survive with his cup of coffee before he leaves for work. And I don't want to be that brain dead dad that comes home after work exhausted saying, leave me alone. I need to relax now.
And I think, just to interject, you kind of had a wake up call, because our oldest Scout is like super attached to me just naturally, more than our second. So I think there's just a personality difference there. But it got to the point where Eric would kind of come home from work and Scout wouldn't even acknowledge him. Like, you know, you think, oh, run to the door, daddy's home. And it was like, didn't even acknowledge him, only wanted me for everything. And I think that was starting to like open your eyes, because you're like, wow, I don't really have much of a relationship with him.
Yeah.
And so then you invested in, after like a few days, maybe even like 2 days, that was completely different.
Yeah.
The time that Eric invested in Scout quickly changed his behavior towards him, Scout's behavior towards Eric. And so I think that was encouraging for him, because I think dads just have a harder time connecting with their kids naturally, like a mom might, because they don't want them maybe as much. And so that doesn't encourage them to want them anymore. You know what I mean? It's like, well, you already don't want me. I have to try that much harder. And so he did. He had to try a lot harder, but it was really cool to see that response.
Totally. I
Total change.
remember that. It's hard. It's funny. It's hard for me to remember those things with kids. And so having the steel trap mind that exists within this one to like recall that stuff is really helpful for me to recognize and remember how that happened. And I totally remember it now. And that was a very pivotal time. And when Theo came around, then our second, who was naturally more attached to me than Scout ever was, that kind of even pushed Scout to be like, no, I want more attention from dad too. And so it started being like a competition, but it felt so good to know that that investment into my children when I came home from work was paying off, because they started running to me when I came home. Like they started running to the door and embracing me when I came home. And that's something that I'll remember fondly about when we first moved into this place. In the middle of growing a YouTube channel and starting to monetize stuff that way, I'm really starting to see numbers come in where it's like, oh man, if I just completely ditch everything I'm doing right now and pursue this YouTube thing full time, that could be a whole career. Totally. And so it's just this middle ground of, okay, what do I do? It's similar to when I was teaching and when I was growing my photography business.
Yeah.
It's like 50-50 again. You can't really give it your all.
What hand and what pot do I have? And so in the midst of all that confusion and that chaos and not knowing what to do, I'm just not focusing on my family. And so we just had a reckoning. Like we went to church last Sunday and heard a sermon about keeping a Sabbath. A Sabbath is biblically is God's commandment of like, hey, you need to take a day and just not do stuff. You need to not do work. You need to relax. You need to recharge. You need to get back into it.
And then enjoy the fruit of your labor.
Exactly.
And they said it really well, that a lot of people, when we say we're going to take a rest day, is like you're coming out of a week and you're crashing. And so a lot of times you binge watch Netflix or you lay on your couch all day. And do you really feel recharged after that? Not really. And so Sabbath is supposed to kind of be the day that fuels you up and fills you to dive into your week head first and really excited. And we have tried to do that before, but it quickly, as soon as Eric gets busy, it might have a tough month where it's like, this just isn't going to happen this month.
Dissolves.
And that's the reality. And then we quickly get out of the habit and it's like, wait, we haven't done this in a year. And we feel it because he's working 7 days a week. And how did this happen? Like, how did we get here? It's really easy to have that realization of like, how did we get here?
Totally. And so I have literally, they're not on the fridge anymore, but I literally took 4 Post-it notes the other night and wrote out goals for family, for business, for 4 different topics of what I want to see change in this next year for myself. And that's so good in this time of struggling and feeling depressed and not knowing what's next, to have a tangible way to figure out what we're going to do as a family and making sure that we're healthy. So that's what we've been working through this past week. It's been very recent. But I think I can speak for both of us in saying that it's been very encouraging to step away from that and getting a refocus on what's important and making sure that we're living a healthy lifestyle and not just solely grinding all the time. And I'm really, this year has been a huge test of me being like, yeah, I don't want to be on the grind 24/7. Whereas if you would have asked me a few years ago, I probably would have been like, yeah, I want to be Casey Neistat. You know, I want to be like doing everything all the time. I can run on liquid energy. And if I go on a run and take a shower, that's all I need I don't need 8 hours of sleep. I can run on 3 hours and go on a run and take a shower. I'll be fine. Like, it's just not reality.
That's been another eye-opening thing. It's just like, we almost have a kid in kindergarten. It's like our time, we're never getting this time back. And so sometimes I just want to, like, when Eric is struggling to be present, just like shake them, you know, like, this is once in a lifetime. They're going to be at school more than they're going to be with us. They're going to have other influencers in their life more than us. This is such a special time. And like, you got to be here. And I think we're just wired really differently. I don't know if it's a guy-girl thing or our personalities. I think it's probably both. That it's just easier for him to lose sight of that. And I respect and appreciate Eric's focus on providing, because that's something where I'm like, we could live in a shack and I'd be happy. But like, he really does want to provide for us and, you know, make sure that we are comfortable. And I appreciate that. I don't think about it. I don't prioritize that at all. So it's good that he does. Someone has to. Yeah.
Awesome. So if you guys could give like one piece of advice, and you can each give this a piece of advice, but if you could give one piece of advice to people who are wanting to go full time with their business or even start something new, who have a family already, what would you say? And specifically have kids.
Yeah, I would say play it safe. That's counterintuitive to a lot of what plenty of internet business people say. I think a lot of people are like, you need to abandon ship and go all in and all the risk and everything. And I know that's just a different approach. For me and my experience and our experience, I was very careful in making sure that we had some sort of financial mainstay so that I could build the next thing. And I'm in that season right now, you know, in recognizing, okay, if I need to drop my prices and book out a whole year, I will, if I have to, in order to grow the YouTube thing, in order to grow the educational realm. I will do that and make that sacrifice. So what I encourage people to do is just be smart about your strategy. Have the self-awareness to recognize that what you're doing can be profitable, and that you're seeking advice and that you have community around you to keep you in check to do that. Because if you're just floating and trying to do it by yourself and failing hard, like, you have kids at stake that need food on the table, and that's not cool if you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants and just hoping that, well, yeah, my thing's going to work out someday, and having zero strategy on how that's going to happen. I'm a huge advocate of like grinding in the way that other people don't say. People will be like, you know, grind on the thing that you are super passionate about and go after 1,000%. That's cool. But maybe also balance a part-time job on the side of it. Like, have a steady stream of income that is going to be there at least. And then all the bread that you win on top of that is just icing on the cake, so that you can put money in savings. You can make investments to grow that thing that you want until you reach the point where you're like, okay, this is what I can do full time.
What about you, Sabriah? Anything come to mind?
So I think in the last actually couple weeks, I've had this realization of, like my mom was a stay-at-home mom and one of 7 kids. That's kind of the life I knew. And I think not only was it kind of hardwired within me of like wanting to be a mom, but I think there was also this, like, I felt like I needed to be like my mom, and she was a really good mom. And I, wanted to, and I felt like she did such a good job with like all of her kids. And I wanted to do that as well. I wanted to invest in my kids as much as she invested in us. But I was talking with a mom a couple weeks ago who works full time and constantly feels guilty about not giving her daughter enough time. And I think a few years ago, I would have been like, well, maybe you should just be, stay at home mom. But then I had this like wake up call that when I was young, I actually didn't really respect my mom until I was probably in college, because I felt like she has no life. She, doesn't do anything outside of the house. She has no friends. And whether or not that was true, that was all my perception of her life, coming from like an 8-year-old or 11-year-old, whatever. And she was very dedicated to what she chose to be dedicated to. And there's sacrifice. And so I think that's always the thing. There's going to be sacrifice. If you choose to work full time, you're sacrificing time with your kids. Are you sacrificing a good relationship? Not necessarily, as long as you're being intentional. And I think what I was just encouraging this mom is just like, she's getting to see you in a way I never got to see my mom. You're like killing it, and you're working so hard, and she's getting to have you as that role model, which is a beautiful thing. And I think I've undervalued that for a lot of my life. Do I feel called to that particularly? No, because I do want that time. That's really important to me. I've learned is that just quality time. Eric's like, your love language is quality time. I'm like, no, it's not. And I'm like, yeah, it totally is. But yeah, so there's always going to be a sacrifice. You cannot do it all. You just can't. We've tried. So yeah, is that advice? Did you ask for advice?
Just something.
You said it. You can't do it all.
Away. Yeah. There's sacrifice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
And there's no right or wrong either. I think it's just you, like Eric said it, you have to know yourself, know what's going to fill you up, know that whatever your choice is also going to be difficult in some ways with your kids because you're sacrificing something, or it's also a really beautiful thing too. So yeah.
It's always the reality that you can't do it all. I always struggle with, I have a million ideas and there's execution I want to do all of the time, but it's all about sacrificing the right things in order to build the things that are most important.
And stop talking.
That is the most profound thing I have learned in the past few years is you absolutely cannot do it all. And if you are strategic, you can build something that will take a long time to get to the place where you can do a lot of the things. That takes a lot of time, effort, and money. But if you are doing stuff on your own, you need to manage your time well. You need to make good sacrifices, and you need to put the time into the things that are worth investing. And you will fail at that all the time. But as long as you have that recognition of, I do need to carve out the time for the most important things like my family. I do need to carve out the time for me to be able to do the hobbies that I want to do, to have time for myself. That's what's healthy instead of just 24/7, always working all the time. It's my perspective. So that's what I've learned recently, and really backed off of like putting in the long hours late at night, making sure I'm home on time and what we've agreed to be on time, having clear communication on that.
Awesome. Well, guys, this was really fun.
It was very fun.
You're the first the first people on the podcast, and this is really exciting. It feels very official to me. For us. So
well, yeah, with this setup.
I know, right? It's crazy.
Also, if your other interviews aren't as good as this one, don't be surprised because it's us.
I mean, really, you're the dream team. So
True.
You're first and last, you know?
That's it.
Truth.
We're quitting. Done.
That's it. The
Done.
business fam.
It's over.
The one and done.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. And yeah, we're just excited to keep being on the journey with you. You guys are some of our closest friends. So thanks for being on the
Have us
podcast.
on again?
Maybe.
100%.
Totally.
Okay, cool. Maybe when Nestled Home reaches like
net
1 million Instagram
10K.
Once we
followers.
swipe up, we'll have you
in
on.
a month.
That's what it takes.
So bad.
I'll never get swipe up.
I would love to even in the future have a conversation of how different we are in some aspects.
Totally.
Mhm.
That'd be super interesting.
But also,
Yeah.
anybody watching, swipe up feature is not that big of a deal.
It's like, we don't have it.
There's like
We're
15
doing
people
okay.
that swipe up every time.
We have our rent paid. It's okay.
Cool.
Love
There's
it.
food on the
Love you
table
guys.
every night.
Love you too.
Love you guys too.